Howdy, listener land. This is Tripod, the Tricycle Creative Marketing Podcast. And on this episode, I am joined by Hillary Houghton from Social HQ. That's an organization, and she is a person who we partner with at Tricycle Creative when clients need full service social media management. Why is Hillary on the show? Because I wanted to bring someone on to talk about the social media learnings from coronavirus. And that is precisely what we are going to do today.
You're listening to Tripod, the Tricycle Creative Podcast, produced for anyone interested in being a better digital and content marketer. Host Ross Erosion is a marketing coach, content creator, and entrepreneur who brings you helpful tips, social media updates, inspiring interviews, and his own unique perspective on how to tell your story and grow your business. So sit back, relax, and let's get pedaling.
Hillary, hello.
Hey, Ross. How's it going?
It is going lovely. Today I showered. That's normally a pretty big accomplishment, but we are recording this during the coronavirus pandemic, so you never know.
So that is, top of the tier performance there today.
It's really a big day. It's really a big day for a number of reasons. A, Ross showered, but B, it's also what the day we're recording this is Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
Oh, you're right. It is.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have a favorite Star Wars movie?
Okay,
character?
this is bad, but Star Wars is
God.
not my jam. I haven't gotten into it.
Are you more like a Star Trek fan? That's it? Well,
I'm not even a Star Trek fan. I just got into Harry Potter like a year ago.
Are we the same person? Now, I don't say I've known about this Harry Potter, but I will say on anything other than digital marketing, I am so late to the party guy on everything.
Oh yeah. When it comes to the pop culture sci-fi stuff, man, I'm late. I don't know if I was just too lowbrow growing up and it didn't really capture me or what, but yeah, it took a little bit of time. So Star Wars is on my list, but I haven't really dived into it. So I can't.
Well, at least you're saying it's like on the list. I can't tell you how many friends hate me because I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, and I will never see an episode of Game of Thrones. I just, I get it. Like Star Wars has 11 movies roughly, right?
Uh-huh.
You count, some of the little individual films. But Game of Thrones is like, after I missed like half of the first season, I'm like, that's too much. It's like homework. It feels like homework.
Yeah, you definitely have to sit down and really ride through it. But I got into that one the last season.
It felt like I had to take notes during it, like I need to know that this person is this person's second cousin. And I can't do that. Like, I'm going to just watch The Office for the 10 bajillionth time through. That was
like a true intellectual.
Like, I'm going to quote you on that. True intellectual.
May the 4th. Baby Yoda?
I ain't watching no news shows. I watch what I like. Quote in the intellectual. Sorry, you're saying something about Baby Yoda. What was it?
Does Baby Yoda count with May the 4th be with you?
It counts in that it's a Star Wars character. Sure, it's part of it's part of the Star Wars universe. So I'll give you points on that. Yes,
like a cousin.
Yeah, sure. Like, now you're trying to trap me. That's entrapment. You're trying to trap me, and I'm not going to fall for it. No, well, if it's on your list, I do, and you just want to dip your toe in, and this makes me feel like, I'm the cool kid in this. I'm not. The Solo movie, it's called Solo. It's about Han Solo. People hated it, but it is really good. It's really good as a standalone film. So, so check it out. You might enjoy it. There's no Baby Yoda. Spoiler, no Baby Yoda in that.
I guess I'll try.
Well, thank you for joining me on the show today. Why don't you take a moment and tell the listeners who you are and what you do? We partner together. Tricycle Creative really does not take over and manage kind of the day-to-day of social media stuff. So I was so lucky to kind of have found you as a partner that we partner with our clients who need that kind of service. But why don't you go ahead and, in your own words, in better words, tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am, my name is Hillary Houghton. I am the founder of Social HQ, which is a social media improvement consultancy. We work with brands who are big and small to really help them actually harness the power that social media has for a brand. There's a lot of history with social media as far as, oh, well, my cousin can do it, or I got an intern to do it. And what you end up doing as a brand is really wasting a lot of time and resources and spinning your wheels and not getting results. So we're an extremely focused on results consultancy. And I came from a background of working agency side. I've worked in-house with social media. So I've been doing this for about 8 years now. And I can tell you, it keeps you on your toes. You'll never really know what the year is going to bring. You don't know what's going to come up. I mean, TikTok coming up and Facebook, quote unquote, dying, which it's not dying. I don't know.
It's been
why people
dying,
think
according to people, for like the last 8 years. It's been
Facebook,
it's like the slowest death ever in the world, if
yeah.
that's what, we're going to believe that.
Yeah, it's exactly. So it's really, that's what we do. And so, Ross, so grateful to be able to partner with you and work with you. You definitely have a lot more of that creative edge. We're focused on the social media strategy. So yeah, that's really a little bit
Yeah,
about
we
me
have a
and
nice like kinship because we approach it similarly. I think we both
Mhm.
definitely have a very strong desire to coach and train people as we go. And I think in situations where I deal with clients who we still have trained and they understand, this is key, they understand the value of social media and they know that it is something that should be invested in, and maybe
Mhm.
they don't have the staff to do that. That is where we are able to work together, right? Because it's not something, I kind of just made the decision early on with Tricycle Creative that we will work with to make people better marketers, to be able to work and do social themselves. But there becomes a point where bringing in an expert, bringing in someone who has more expertise is absolutely valuable, and you kind of outgrow the need. I can't tell you how many people I come across, and they're, the owner of the business, and they, their business is growing and they still want to manage their social. And there
Yeah.
gets to be a point where it's like, you need to kind of make a decision where you most valuable for your business. And I think that's where we've had a lot of success in bringing you on and helping you, or having you help some of our clients. So that's why you're here. But really why we're here is because we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the social media learnings from coronavirus. Now, as I said, as we sit here, it's Star Wars Day, May the 4th. Um, I am certainly not going to sit here and say that we're out of the woods on it, right? I think we're going to look back at some point when and if we're out of this, or when and if we're in a post-apocalyptic road warrior type scenario, and identify this maybe as, phase one or whatever it may be. But I think that as we sit here today, there are already things and learnings that you can apply, right? That's kind of like where we're at on this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that especially, given the last 6 to 8 weeks, brands have really had to become more agile, and they've really had to throw away the handbook on what they've known and really step into their own and be responsive to their customers too. You have the entire nation and the entire world dealing with this issue, and knowing how to interact with them as a brand and using social media as your communication tool has really been new, uncharted territory for a lot of different brands. So it's interesting to see what has already come out of it so far.
I think that it's really, interestingly enough, shown the value of social media if you give it the time and energies and resources. Because I think
Oh,
people
yeah.
have had to move away from working in their business because maybe, unfortunately, maybe they've lost some clients or what have you. So they're like, well, if they're anything like me, at least, they're like, well, I'm just going to jump in to stay, and I'm going to do more on social media. And they're like, oh, maybe they're seeing different results or better results. Right. And it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the part of it is time and resources. The other part of it is, I think, what we can bring to the table is like some of the expertise, right? The stuff that you don't know, right?
Yeah. And too, what's really interesting is brands who have traditionally used TV and radio and billboard, they have been cutting a lot of those budgets and shifting them over into social because that's where people are. Same with over the top, same with, TV, not as much, but especially in billboards and out of home, you're seeing a lot of those budgets being transferred over into social media just because that's where people are. So whether or not people are going to continue to stay on social media once everything levels out, I think we're in for a really big shift in the marketplace as far as where dollars are allocated.
Yeah, and on my last episode I did with Fernando from SEM Rush, he actually talked about the same type of shift of companies who have been heavily invested in SEM, search engine marketing, and moving it over finally, if you will, into SEO. Because it's like if more and more people are searching and, investing in SEO for long-term results, long-term dividends versus the short-term, which come with SEM. So if you're interested in that, you can tune into the last episode again with Fernando from SEM Rush. He talks about that shift also. So I think there's a shift all around of dollars and for that matter, even I'd say eyeballs and whatnot. And wherever the eyeballs are, that's usually where the dollars go. So Hillary and I have put together 6 social media learnings from coronavirus thus far. I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to have you start with your first social media learning from coronavirus that people should know.
Oh man. Well, it's interesting because this one isn't too far off from what we already knew. I think it's just bubbling to the surface now because of everything that is going on. So in this shakeup and in this roundup, the brands who have really risen to the occasion have been providing valuable social media content. And what I mean when I say value, it's not just putting something out there, resonating with the emotions that people are going through or really, directing your customer where to buy your product online versus in your brick and mortar store. It's really getting down to the nitty gritty of what is driving your audience to make a decision, not just on what they're going to buy, but who they're going to follow and continue to align themselves with. So an example of this that we've seen is hairdressers. Hairdressers have not been able to do their services around the country right now. But the hairdressers who are providing the tips on the real issues that people are facing, which with their hair is my roots are growing out, or I need a haircut and I'm a guy and I'm having shaggy eyes and I don't really want to buzz my hair. So those hairstylists are able to put out content that's able to guide those customers through this uncharted territory. So of course, that's a really, lighthearted example. There's much more deeper that we could get into, but
let's not get dark. Let's not get too dark.
We're not going to go there. That's not what this is for.
No.
But when you're thinking about, that value that you're bringing to your customer to connect with them in a way that is truly meaningful, that is how you create those long-standing connections so that you always have that loyalty coming back to purchase you. Similar to what we're saying with SEO, it is such a long-term game right now when you're getting in there and connecting with people for the long run. So that's what I would say.
So number one, you're saying, create valuable content. That's where people should be. That's where they should be thinking. That's where maybe they should be putting some of their energies towards, right?
100%. Do not promote your product over and over and over and over again.
Oh,
people
God.
will just be driven away.
Yeah, particularly now because more and more eyeballs and usage are online, and it's like that's all they're going to be seeing from you.
Yeah.
And that's not a valuable. That plays into my social media learning for coronavirus. And that is the number 2 learning for those of you out there. It is reusing old content I'll say wisely, maybe strategically, right? And these two tie together because I was just thinking in your example of the hairdresser, haircut, hair salon is really good and ties into this well, because think about the video that maybe they did a year ago of, just on a whim of how to, do a simple men's haircut, right? With some I'm gonna tell you, I watched like 3 of those videos over this break. So, but like that is where reuse the stuff that you've already made. So many of the people that I work with, the clients that I talk to, the businesses I consult, they'll do something once, they'll put it out there once, and then it's like on to the next thing. And that is such a wasted opportunity of content that you've invested time or resources or money or whatever in. So I think I put the little in parentheses wisely when reusing, because what you don't want to necessarily do is reuse old content in a way that feels I was going to go so far as say insensitive, but like it just feels tone deaf is probably
Forced.
right. Yeah. Like forced or tone deaf. So I encourage you to go back through the content you've created, see what might be relevant, maybe find a new way to make it relevant. Maybe that's updating, the blog post specifically. Maybe it's adding to it. Maybe it'll give you an idea for, to your point, to backing it back up, to create something new. But don't leave good stuff, good content on the shelf during this time. Right? I mean, like
100%.
I just feel like there's so much opportunity if you are spending the time to do videos, to do blogs, to do whatever, go back through and look at it.
Yeah.
Is there stuff that was wildly popular 6 months ago? Right? Maybe time to reframe it or revisit that.
And to that point, too, it's about not spinning your wheels, trying to reinvent something new all the time, especially right now. A lot of people are exhausted and there's a lot going on, for their energy to be spent elsewhere. Give yourself a break with that old content. Help yourself out.
Totally. You've made it once. Even if you redo it, you're like 80% there, I would think.
Exactly.
So, all right. So we have, to recap, create valuable content. That's always what you should be doing out there. So second, we want you to reuse your old content strategically, wisely. So that brings us to number 3, Hillary. Number 3, social media learning from coronavirus.
I'm going to have to say be agile. So your agility and your ability to pull back from what you've already planned. If you have planned out your content, a lot of brands really just had to throw all of it, in the draft box and start from scratch. And that ability to go with the flow a little bit more and be more in the moment with your audience and real world events is really important. That's important all the time too with social media content, is that if there ever is a natural disaster or if there ever is something big that happens that impacts your audience directly, as a social media manager, and when I say social media manager, anyone who manages a brand's social media is a social media manager. You really have to be super responsive to that. So you need to know when to pull it down and when to completely pivot. So we've seen a lot of brands right now using that agility to their benefit. And, a really good example is gyms. Have you seen any of the gyms out there?
No, I don't, I'm definitely, if you've never seen me before, I'm definitely totally in shape. So you don't need to worry. Like, I follow I don't need to follow any gyms, but, how do I slowly lurk away from the microphone on this? I have not, but that's certainly, which I think you probably have a good example, does not mean that there are some that are doing good job out there, because it is, those, I mean, gyms, I don't know if they're on this next wave of openings, but even if they are, my wife's like, you're not going back to the gym for she's like, it's gross on a good day. It's gross when there's no coronavirus. So anywho,
I can't disagree with your wife. But you have all these personal trainers, and you have all of these, studios who have completely transformed their model using social media. So they're taking their classes to Instagram Live, or they are coming on and doing, interviews or responding to customers' questions on their different posts about what they need to be eating right now, or how to, really just squeeze in a workout if you're going to be sitting all day, or what the best, posture corrector is. There's a lot of really great and valuable content going out there just from the fact that these businesses that have traditionally been more focused on the in-person interactions have used social media to transform and really, rise to the occasion. So I would say that agility and ability to completely move your model, and also with social media, tap into how people are using it, is really a benefit for a lot of brands right now.
Yeah, and I think doing some of those things, like you said, in place of, the maybe more stale thing that they had scheduled, to your point, that just isn't relevant anymore,
Yeah.
like it's just so, I think
go out with your friends right now.
yeah,
You can't go
yeah,
out with
right.
friends.
I mean, all the stuff that you all the best intended stuff that you had scheduled and planned for as part of an editorial or content calendar, I think you got to look at it a little bit closer now, right?
100%. If you say one thing about meeting up with friends, or you have one picture of a, restaurant right now, oh, people are going to come in the comments and have a field day. So you
It's
got to
true.
be cautious of it. And there's a lot of sensitivity around what to post, which, this isn't necessarily one of the learnings, but there are some brands that are completely paralyzed from saying anything at all,
Yeah.
because they are so scared of saying the wrong thing,
And
which
I
I
would
would
say
argue is
that's
not
an
the right
advantage
approach.
for the
Yeah.
small business, right? Which
Oh,
not for nothing. It doesn't mean that they can't have a little misstep here, but know this: if you're a small business or entrepreneur, be thoughtful, right? And be considerate, but count your blessings that, your social media post doesn't have to go through 3 levels of approval. I've lived that life.
exactly.
I am sure you've lived that life. Nightmare life that was
Oh,
a
yeah.
corporate social media manager. You don't have that. And I think that brings us very nicely. It's almost like we planned. It's almost like we
Almost.
planned how these things go together. Don't be
Yeah.
fooled if you've ever listened to the show before with me or Chris or me and Kayla. We don't plan anything. I'm kidding. There's some amount of planning. Okay. So number 4, my social media learning for or from the coronavirus is create meaningful connections. So, I think this is where people who are pouring a little bit more time into their own social media, whether they mean it or not, they are or should be creating these more meaningful conversations with people, whether it's through their brand pages. I'd even go so far as to say through their personal pages, through their LinkedIn, those people who, reconnecting. I think now is an absolutely lovely time to reconnect with former colleagues, friends, just because the whole, we're apart together, I recognize that is a campaign, but I do think there's a lot of truth and opportunity to reconnecting with people. I mean, I've been running Tricycle Creative for over 2 years at this point, and reconnecting with some people. I think we take advantage as entrepreneurs. We just assume that everyone in our personal network just definitely knows what we're doing, right? For sure. And they don't, like it's, and that's okay. And I think sometimes, reconnecting with those people on I'll even say spiritual, emotional level can help, because it is very difficult right now. Just being at home or dealing with the difficult loss, whether it's of business, maybe even of family or friends, This is a thing that is actually killing people. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the levity that comes with that, the reconnecting, is important. And I would even say, from me doing it, I mean, I was able to actually get new business from doing that. One of,
Yeah.
like one of my best friends in the world, I just happened to reconnect with him on Instagram. We got to chatting and we're working together now. So
Yeah.
that can happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that has been the trend for those who have risen to that occasion and done the outreach and checked in with their friends and their families and their past colleagues. It's the business is still moving right now, especially for those brands that are able to market online. So I think it's been an interesting transformation, and there's a lot of companies that have just been completely blown over or impacted, extremely. But there's also a lot of companies that are actually doing better in this season
Yeah.
than they had in the last couple of months.
I think it's about, I mean, I feel like it's always about this, but this is where you should be focused. It's really about figuring out what you can give
Mm-hmm.
and not being so focused on what you can get. And sometimes the give may not necessarily be a money thing to start. And listen, I am the most cautious with my time than maybe most entrepreneurs. Like, my time is my most valuable thing, so I'm really stingy with it. But finding opportunities to reconnect with people, I really do believe that you may end up opening some doors that you had never even considered. And again, if you are a small business or entrepreneur out there, a lot of your business for the first couple of years comes from your extended personal network and
Mm-hmm.
referrals. And this is also a time, interestingly enough, with all the negative things that happen, there's kind of the yin and yang of it. There's a lot of businesses that are starting. People are starting their own
Yeah.
businesses right now. And so
Yeah.
there's opportunity there. Potentially for you to find a new partner or a collaborator or whatever. So to recap, create valuable content. Number 1, reuse old content strategically. Number 2, nix the content, kind of, or you said be more, what was the word?
Agile.
Agile. I was going to say
Yeah.
nimble, but I don't know if that's the
Oh,
same.
I like nimble.
Do you like nimble better? Okay. Be more agile and nimble. See what I did there? I just compromise or
Best of
something.
both worlds.
Best of both worlds. Create meaningful connections. That's number 4. And now that brings us to number 5, which I lay at your doorstep. And fire away, Hillary. What's number 5? The number 5 lesson, social media learning from coronavirus.
All right, number 5, drum roll.
This is a real professional operation, so I just want you to know.
Being responsive. So if you've traditionally had a page and you've had people commenting on it, or you have people who are liking your page, or you have people who are talking about your page, some brand managers, especially business owners who are managing it themselves, don't have the time in their minds to be able to respond. And being able to integrate that into your day-to-day, into your content, into your calendar, so that you have time scheduled out so that you can respond to those people, is so important for building that long-term brand loyalty. And here's why, is that if you have people who are responding right now, they are always looking for you to be able to build a connection with them. And they're always looking for, a lot of people don't think they're going to get a response from a brand, even the small brand. So if you are just a one-man show, don't discount that from the people who are commenting on your stuff, because every time you respond to somebody, they feel so seen. And right now, that's really what people need, and that's what people are craving. So the more that you can do in your brand to be able to go in there and really be responsive, not just to what they're saying, but what they're implying, or the realities of their situation, or the struggles that they're sharing and opening up with you. All of that is so important to be responsive to, in order to not just make an impact right now, but make an impact for the long haul. So
I like
that's what I would say.
responsive to your point, I like responsive in this greater sensibility of be responsive, not only just, yes, practically to the comments and things like that, but to your point, like to their, I say needs, to their struggles. I'm working with a client right now. We were talking about, sending an email out, and he was like, well, I don't know. Like it just feels like such a difficult time right now. And, I don't want them to feel like I'm, insensitive to that. And I said, okay, so why don't we just own that? Like I've said it a billion jillion times. I am very big on transparency, maybe to a fault, but part of me was like, well, then why don't you own that?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you send a message and say, hey, I reckon like this is, and I know that it's very busy right now. It's very noisy right now in inboxes and things like that. But it's like, why don't you own that and step outside of the business moniker or something and own it and say, hey, I know that times are tough, that businesses are that businesses all over are struggling and people's lives are being affected. And, but add in there, because this is a client that has a lot of really informative like blog content, and I say, why don't you look at bringing that potentially into that email? Make no mention of a sale. This is not about sale. This is not at all about getting them as a client. This is about you adding value, potential value to them in a way that makes some sense, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they have something around remote working, or maybe they have something around safety precaution, like taking that approach. So that's like the greater responsive, if you will,
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's also just a matter of outside of a business, if you are a founder or if you're a part of an organization, anything you do on LinkedIn is going to be tied back to your brand. So when you're talking about reaching out to your customer base as a whole, you also have the opportunity, kind of back to your whole mentality about meaningful connections, is reaching out to people who have been negatively impacted on LinkedIn, whether that means that they lost their job or that their sales are down and they're expressing that need for some help or just a hand. Anything that you do to be able to give is a reflection back on your brand. So you're not trying to make a sale, you're really just being responsive to the needs of your consumers. So obviously that works if your end goal is to be able to work with entrepreneurs or business owners. But even down to your consumer level, check out your followers, tap in to see what your followers are posting and what they're talking about. You might find yourself, back to the example of a gym, if you go into your followers and you find, somebody who's been posting about how they just feel like they fallen off the wagon, or they're being, beating up on themselves, you even just posting a nice comment saying that you're excited, for when everything is back to normal and you'll be here supporting them the whole way through. I mean, that goes such a long way for people.
Yeah.
So never underestimate how the different ways that social media can connect you, that you can really make an impact and touch people on just such a personal level that they feel seen and heard.
Yeah, and I think that brings again us ever so nicely to tip, or the social media learning thus far from coronavirus, and that is I am recommending, or at least you should have learned by now and you should be applying, that try something new. There have been elements of this learning throughout our whole conversation here, but I think that it is important that now is a time for businesses and social media managers out there to try something new. And let's, what are some of those new things? Live streaming, right? That's huge right now. So many more, or just video in general. Maybe it's just, video that you record live and then post, right? I mean, like trying out these new things, maybe trying, maybe you have that Instagram account that has been, dusty as all hell. Maybe now is the opportunity to try, like spend give yourself and say, I'm going to, spend an hour a day or what. I'm sure you have better, like whatever it is, give yourself some very set kind of, I'll say, deadlines or goals to try out these new things. And I can't stress this enough. People don't try new things because they're like, oh, it's not going to be perfect, or, it's this may be unpopular. I'm going to say, it's not going to be as good as what Gary Vee does. And it's like, all right, bro, like, listen, relax. Okay. Gary Vee got to where he was by doing it wrong for a long time, I'm sure, for trying things out. Also, not many of us have a staff of content creators around us, right? That's probably not you if you're listening to this. You have to get out there and you have to try new things. You may find that you gravitate towards one. You may find that you gravitate away from one, but at least you've learned that and you've tried it. I mean, talking about this gym it's just like exercising, like you have to flex those muscles. So try new things. Maybe this is very popular right now, and actually something that I am going to probably do very soon with some of our online training courses. But like a lot of people are doing like buy one, give one type thing, like try new things like that. Try different and new ways to engage your online audiences, because people and businesses who are just sitting back and waiting for things to get back to quote unquote normal, you're going to be left holding the bag for a long time. And it may never, it may honestly be 6 months, a year, maybe never. I don't know, before things are back to the normal that we once knew. And I feel like this is a missed opportunity. If you are sitting there right now and you are not thinking and trying new things with your business.
Yeah, 100%. And also, to that effect, it's make sure that you have tangible timelines of how long you want to test something.
Totally.
So if you're going to go in there and test something out, give yourself 4 weeks to really try it, and make sure you put it in your calendar so that you have it and it's a reminder every time you're going to do it. So whether that's twice a week or once a day, just setting those tangible deadlines, because so many of these try something news can really just fall to the wayside if you're not thinking or measuring it. But you might surprise yourself. Ross, I think that's a really good one.
And let me just say, because I struggle with this, I know myself pretty good. I am a constant content creator. I just can't help myself. I got a real problem, but that's my jam. And I will say, I bring this up because this has to be part of your overall strategy, right? Your overall content or marketing strategy. But I am a big believer in always having this kind of like trying something new time or thing, right? I just think that that's so incredibly important. And right now, if it's something that you just enjoy doing, there can be value in that. There can be value in that, right? Like I'm doing a new video series. It's not lighting the world on fire, but to be totally honest with you, I make the time. It doesn't chew up more time than I allow it. I enjoy doing it, and it gives me an opportunity to just be out there in front of people in a different way. That's valuable to me. And now I got to gauge that against my critical business functions, but that's what I do. I manage that properly. But I just think there is value. And if there's something that you enjoy doing, even if it's not like moving the needle terribly, if you enjoy doing it, you're going to be more likely to keep doing it. And you'll figure out a way to point it back to the business or to get value from it. I really believe that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
So we have now presented to you, the listener, 6 social media learnings from coronavirus. Create valuable content. Reuse old content strategically. Be nimble and what's the other word? Agile, right?
There
Agile?
you go.
There we go. Okay. I didn't write it down again, so I'm an idiot. Okay. Create meaningful connections. Be responsive and try something new. Is there anything else, Hillary, that you can think of before we wrap on this episode of Tripod, the Tricycle Creative Marketing Podcast? Anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, I would just say be kind to yourself. This is it's been weird. It's been a weird time for a lot of people. It's been weird for a lot of business owners. So whether you're on the positive side of that or the negative side, just there's a lot of stress underlying there. So just be kind to yourself and, take what you can and leave the rest for a later date. But yeah, Ross, this has been really fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed having you. May I also put out there, and this is not necessarily a tip from this, but I do think it's relevant, like take some mental health time, right? Take some time. I am the worst offender of this. I don't do this enough, but like I decided to take off a Sunday. Crazy. Take off a weekend day. But I took the day off. Guys, you need to recharge your batteries. This is a very stressful time on so many fronts, and I know it's hard, but you have to recharge those batteries or else you're just going to be running on fumes, and there's no aspect of your business that benefits from if you're the business owner or the entrepreneur running on fumes. Have you been good, Hillary, about like taking some time off or taking those mental breaks?
Yeah, I started off rough. I was really focused on the business and optimizing everything and getting as much done as I could. It was a little bit like the Energizer Bunny, but over the last couple of weeks, I've really hit my stride where I'm able to take the time that I need in order to just, recharge. Animal Crossing has been a lovely investment for that.
That is killing it. And yeah, I have just heard people are just all over the Animal Crossing.
Just chopping down some trees and catching some bees, man. It's just great.
It just takes you to a time where you can be outside and around other virtual people, right? So
exactly. It's great. But no, I've been good on that.
Yeah, I got a new video game too that's occupying a good amount of my time, so that's been good. That's been a nice distraction for me. But yeah, guys, I really think it's important out there that you get that distraction time in, because it's just one thing, and I ascribe to this all the time, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, but I use a 5-task rule. So I always have up to 5 things a day that I need to get done on my to-do list. And after you get the 5 done, you can mentally give yourself the approval to, you can still work on things but you also have permission now to, hey, I've had a meaningful, successful day where I accomplished things, right? Yeah. That's the hardest thing. What's next? When you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, it's like, there's always something next. Always. So it kind of gives you permission to take that time off. You feel good about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so important right now. Everyone's got to just step back and keep, make some sourdough bread. All the cool kids are doing it.
We've had so much sourdough at my house. I've had so much. I'm carbing up between not going to the gym and having all the sourdough my wife's making. I'm gonna be a real menace when I return back to that gym in 6.5 years when it's safe. With that, we will wrap this episode of Tripod. For show notes and ways that you can connect with Hillary, which I'm going to give her a chance to tell you in a second here, but you can go to tripodpodcast.com. Again, tripodpodcast.com for show notes and all of our other episodes. If you haven't already subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, which go ahead and just do that. But Hillary, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course we're on social media at Your Social HQ. You can follow us there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then you can also check us out online at www.yoursocialhq.com. So, yeah, Ross, thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. And we will talk at you next time. In the meantime, I encourage you to keep pedaling.